Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage your MC for Zero Trust World, Adam Reed.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to day 2 Zero Trust World. How's everybody feeling? We're in good shape. So. Saw the bar last night. You guys were having a good time. A few of you, anyways. Thank you all for being here on time and being with us on day 2 of this incredible journey that we're going to do together and go on together. We have an incredible lineup, guys, for you today. If you thought yesterday was incredible, wait till you see what we have prepped for you. We're really excited to share that with you. But before we get to that, I thought it'd be really interesting to take a trip down memory lane of what day 1 was like at Zero Trust World. So don't take my word for it. It was a day full of excitement and great energy. Let's take a quick little video or take a look at the video of a recap of day 1 of Zero Trust World.
There's guys here from all over the world, guys and girls, and it's quite interesting. Everybody's quite friendly, so we get to compare our experiences and maybe help each other out with some sticky points.
I've seen a lot of like small to medium-sized cybersecurity firms here, which is really good because, of course, it's really high-growth industry. So it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to network with them. I'm in a government agency, so my experience has been that it's kind of challenging to get in contact with smaller firms. So it's been nice to kind of connect with them and see like what their challenges are. It's a great conference. There's a lot of learning, a lot of networking. I see a lot of people, speak friends that I've met over the years, and it's a good chance to interact and learn more about Zero Trust and other security products that are coming to market and that we all need to be thinking about.
Big round of applause, guys, for day 1. That was what we need. Big shout out for the production team, by the way. That put that together so quickly. One of the highlights that we had yesterday was, of course, our keynote speaker, Bob Arno, who I think we had a really good time with. There's some really great moments on stage. And it was really interesting to hear his feedback. So we caught up with Bob Arno a little bit to see what his reaction was like and what his first day at Zero Trust World was like. Take a look at this.
I knew when I looked at this crowd before we started, this was going to be good. And the reason is eager people, not necessarily for what's happening up on stage, just eager personality. I think that they are going to be a tad shocked at how easy certain crime can happen if you don't have the prior knowledge for that area.
When he got behind and he asked me to stand up, he asked me to spin around, I felt it in my back pocket. What a cool thing to be able to take with him. The idea that something may distract us from watching the real threat. We shouldn't be distracted by some shiny object and avoid the real threat. Being vigilant in all areas of what's important for cybersecurity.
Big round of applause for Bob Arno, everyone. I'm still traumatized by that tie that was in there. I don't know what that was all about. Another thing that we asked you guys to do yesterday, which was part of the experience here at Zero Trust World, was to share your thoughts, your feedback, pictures, etc., how you guys were experiencing Zero Trust World. So I want to bring up a couple of pictures, if we can, of some of the pictures that we received on our social media. They might come up. If they don't, we'll share that with you a little bit later. Oh, they're there. Okay, yeah. So first one behind me, we have Renee Miller caught a picture with yesterday's keynote speaker, Bob Arno. You see that on the left there, which is great. Thanks for posting that. Scott Davis shares an image with us in the room just before he comes up on stage. And that was for the presentation of Making Sense of the Acronym Soup. And then we have Angel De Silva, who takes a picture with Danny Jenkins and showed how excited he is to be here at Zero Trust World. So again, guys, keep sharing it. We love this. We're going to start our days off with some great pictures like this. If you've got some videos behind the scenes, let us know. And I'm sure there's going to be quite a few pictures tonight at an Act to the Future. So that being said, one thing I did want to address is, out of curiosity, I estimate that we probably did 2 sessions by now. The Cyber Hero certification exam should be done by now. That means there might be some people that were just certified in the room with us. By a show of hand, I won't be able to see you, maybe I will, but by a show of hands, how many people passed that exam are now certified? If you can lift your hand, I believe we have 5 or 6. Big round of applause for them. Congratulations on that. Well done, well done. So let's get day 2 underway. So what I want us to do now is I want us to pivot from assessing risk and threats to thinking about the future, thinking about what we can do about it. I want us to get into action mode, and we've got 2 guests that are going to help us to be able to do that. So the first has well over a decade of experience in IT as a high-level engineer and go-to ransomware recovery expert serving the SME market. Oh, and did I mention that he's the current CTO at ThreatLocker, an endpoint security industry? The other is a leading cybersecurity expert with over 2 decades of experience building corporate networks, including roles on red and blue teams. When he's not educating the industry professionals about the latest in cyber threats and frequently speaking on topics like ransomware and zero trust, he is, of course, the CEO and co-founder of ThreatLocker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael Jenkins and Danny Jenkins.
Good morning, everybody. Morning. So, you may or may not know, Michael is my little. For that. The better looking one. The better looking. So, we're here to talk about what's coming in ThreatLocker, but also we're going to reflect on what's happened in the last year. What is our mission? What do we want to achieve at ThreatLocker? Our goal is to protect from cyber attacks using least privilege and control-based methods, aka zero trust. Everything we do in ThreatLocker, we focus on not what everyone else is doing in the market, but how can we change the way of thinking and how can we block more threats? How can we make it harder for the bad guy to get access to your systems? We started off, and we can probably see a show of hands of who remembers when we were just an allow listing product. We started off saying that we understood allow listing was the future of blocking malware. And we've probably got a few people, show of hands, who you started ThreatLocker when we were just allow listing. Couple up there. And my eyes are bad with these lights, but. And then we expanded from there to ring fencing, which was really extremely innovative, because when we came in with this idea of allow listing, the product already existed. The challenge with it was too difficult, it was too hard to manage, and ThreatLocker turned it into something that was only for massive organizations that had millions of dollars and unlimited resources, to a product that's used by over 40,000 businesses today, from small local dental offices up to the US Navy, JetBlue, and big multinational corporations. But what we did with ring fencing was we said, well, good software can be weaponized against us. Every application we run on our system sees all of our data. So we need to stop those applications from having unlimited privileges because we don't trust them, because the concept of zero trust is don't trust unless we need to. So we took away basic permissions like file access from things like PowerShell, like application access from things like Office, and we're able to harden environments and stop exploits of vulnerabilities such as the stolen Winds Orion, the Exchange vulnerability, the Kaseya vulnerability. All of these things that happened in the past, we were able to block using the combination of those 2 tools. And then we extended that because we still found so many people are running local admins on their machine. And so we need to take away admin rights, but customers couldn't do that because they had applications that were legacy, and we're able to take away those admin rights and just give those applications the ability to elevate. A couple of numbers here is worth noting. We process over 2 billion rows of data per hour. Now, think about that. I remember when I wrote the first line of code as well, and the first time we logged something and I saw what was happening, but I was like, oh, this log story logging on my computer, I'm opening all these applications. And at that point, it was a cloud-based server. Now we have cages and cages in data centers and hundreds of servers spread in multiple geographic locations, and 2 billion rows of data get processed by ThreatLocker every hour and fed into what you see as the unified order. In addition to that, we collect data from 40,000 customers, and we're able to use that data to better make decisions on what should be allowed and what should be blocked. Now, in the last year, I think, Michael, I'll let you talk about network access control a little bit. We last Zero Trust World, we announced our network access control product, and today, 35% of our customers are using it.
That's right, Danny. Network access control was announced last year, and since then we have pushed out and changed the way that it works. The basic concept is simple. It's about controlling the inbound network access to your endpoints, not just on a perimeter level on an individual computer, server. So if you've got internet-facing servers such as your RMMs, they're on-prem, you can lock them down to only your computers using objects through ThreatLocker to make sure that your RMM is more secure. You can lock down the file servers so that only your computers are allowed to access the file shares, as well as RDP. Anything over the network, locking it down, which stops an awful lot of attack vectors straight in their trailer because they can't spread across the network.
More and more, we're seeing ransomware attacks from devices that weren't known about on networks. And DHCP servers issue dynamic addresses to IP addresses when you connect to the network, and then you have your servers, your file servers, your Active Directory servers, your Exchange servers, your application servers, all on the same LAN. And as a business, you have to say, well, I need to make sure only my trusted devices are on the network. The traditional way of doing that was buying a really expensive, complicated network access control, and then trying to decide what do I trust and what don't I trust on my network, and not letting untrusted devices. The fundamental flaw with that method is you are on or off the network. And things like copiers had to access maybe one file server, but by putting them on the network, they could access the entire network. So you'd either have to separate your file server network from your Active Directory network, which was not viable. And it really became impossible for small businesses and difficult for large businesses to implement those traditional 802.11 controls. But by using our network controls, we're able to say which devices automatically updated based on their IP address at that point in time can access our server. So when somebody comes into your network, they can't see your server, and the same applies on the internet. I think that the tech team and the support team and the account management team at ThreatLocker have done a great job this year. And maybe if some of you guys up there, just give a wave to them at helping our customers get this rolled out across tens of thousands of companies, deploy it and successfully lock down networks that weren't locked down before. The next thing we want to talk about, that's a bit of the log from the Mac. We probably can click over on that one. Someone's got inserted in the wrong space. Is what we've achieved from last year is our mobile app.
Yeah, so last year when we had TT World, we had the mobile app, very small, just on iOS, it was in public beta. Since then, it's been publicly released. It's on Android, it's used by thousands of users. And not only is it just limited to being able to look at your computers and change the maintenance modes, you've now got approval requests, that's elevation, application, and storage. You've got the help desk in there, everything at your fingertips. When you're on site fixing a computer in front of the user's computer, you can use your mobile app to make sure your life is just a little bit easier. You can even open up the tray, scan a QR code, and go straight to that computer. We've made the mobile app take our portal and make your lives easier when you're trying to work on something.
And I think the biggest one, which was the most challenging thing we've done in the last 5 years, probably, even more challenging than ring fencing and whitelisting, was the Mac agent. Because Apple Macs work completely different to Windows. So it was very easy for us to say, well, let's just port everything we have in Windows and make it work on a Mac. Only the operating system works in a completely different way. So we announced the Mac agent last year at Zero Trust World with the intention of taking it out of beta by October, September at the latest. And today, or last week, was it?
I think officially last week, yeah.
The Mac agent is now in general release out of beta. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the Mac agent does and what the goals are, Michael, on that?
So the Mac agent at the moment controls your applications. So it's very similar to what you're doing on Windows. You're able to control what applications can and can't run. Very familiar. You're going to see it all in the unified audit. You can approve the same way as you do with the Windows agents. We've also included storage control in there as well. So you're not even going to be able to see everything that's going on. You can control the access to the files, making sure that the Mac is protected, and you can lock them down as well. We've even added in the first parts of network access control. So if you do have a Mac on your LAN, you can use the objects and the authorization hosts to be able to authenticate it. So it's connecting to your file servers. You're going to be able to make sure that you can still lock down those file servers while having your Macs allowed to access them.
The biggest difference between the Mac and the Windows version is it pops up in the top right corner instead of the bottom right corner. Okay. Other major changes in the last year, and this was not only great for customers, but great for ThreatLocker because it definitely helps. It definitely helps. It was a massive reduction in RAM usage and bandwidth utilization. We rewrote the core of how we are able to look for and detect applications. We changed from a policy-based system that downloads from the internet, new policies and new application lists, to a Delta-based system where we only download the difference in policies. We were able to reduce the amount of RAM by 70+% on endpoints, in some cases even more, and we managed to reduce the bandwidth and the server communication by over 80%. You know how many Mac lovers are in the room? That got lots of attention. The Mac got no class.
In addition to those changes, Danny, we've also, with the new versions of ThreatLocker, deploying policies is a lot faster as well. So when you deploy policies, they are almost instantaneous down to the computers.
Actually, I was doing a demo, and I don't do very many demos anymore, but I was doing a demo last week, and I saved the commit. And as before the save button had actually came back up and the window had closed, and we're talking like 2 seconds, and it was a very good timing thing because they happened to check in at that moment. It popped up on the machine saying you can now run this new software. So that was incredibly fast. Now, the other improvements, which are a little bit more mundane, but these are used a lot, are changes to the tray, to the pop-up from the user perspective. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about those.
So we had a lot of feedback on the tray, and we implemented a few new features. One of them I mentioned with the mobile app is the QR code. You can scan that straight into the app to be able to enable maintenance modes. The other one that's been very useful for users, Dan, you just mentioned, when you commit something, the user's going to get a pop-up on their tray to say that it's now ready to run. So they know you've actioned it, they can make it run now, they can go straight into the program that was originally blocked and requested. And something I think a few people have approached me about this already today and yesterday, the real-time unified audit in the tray. So if you're on a machine, you can go straight and see everything that's going to be logged into the audit. So you don't have to worry about logging into the portal to see all that. You've got it all there right in front of you. You can see everything that's happening, not just applications, files, the network, absolutely everything is logged onto there. And while we were making all these changes, we made another change as well, giving you the ability to fully customize the text on those pop-ups. So not just your logo now, you can actually customize what it says to your users when they get something blocked.
All of those notifications are customizable. You can put your logo, you can put your company details. If you're an MSP, you can put your corporate logo on there and the message. If you have foreign language needs, you can change those to be your local language as well. Now, I think this is one of the coolest things we did, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of backstory about this. So, a few of you have probably been to our corporate headquarters here in Orlando this week and seen how we operate in our office. And we like to move very, very fast. I don't like slow. I don't like people to walk slow. I don't like people to. I actually have a joke that someone comes in for an interview, we look at the cameras and see how fast they're walking. If they're walking slow, they're probably not going to be a good fit. But I don't like things to be slow. And one of the features we added a couple of years ago during COVID was us to take over the management of the approvals for you. So if you don't want to manage cyber hero approvals, the requests and approvals, We will look after it for you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We'll monitor those and we'll essentially become an extension to your IT department. So you don't have to worry about somebody requested something, I don't have to permit it. Now, we typically do action these, pick them up within a few minutes. Sometimes it takes us longer to make a decision because we jump through a lot more hoops as you would if you were making a decision if something's allowed or not allowed. So one day I came into the office and I look at the board and everything's red and it changes color if it's been in for 3 minutes or 4 minutes and then it starts beeping and it beeps really loud. It gets very annoying. So, and it beeps, yeah. And what happens is every minute it's in the queue, it beeps one more time. So if it's in the queue for 1 minute, it says beep, and then 2 minutes, beep, beep, 3, beep, 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 and you can imagine how that gets pretty annoying. So I'm looking at this and we're 35 minutes behind with some approvals. And I said, what the hell's going on? And they said, oh, it was just a big influx of approvals and we're struggling to get it done. So I immediately sat down, I grabbed one of the support computers and I logged in and I started working through the approvals. Like, we can't have it like this. And there wasn't a lot in there. There was 35 approvals, which might seem like a lot, but when you've got millions of endpoints, it's not really that much. But it was, some of them were 35 minutes. And I started to go through the approvals, and I was like, this is taking forever. So an approve a piece of software, because we have to run it in an environment, what we would do is we'd download it, we'd run it in our environment, we'd go into the unified audit, we'd check all the network traffic, everything we'd do a little bit of research on the web. I was like, this is taking forever. This is really, really painful. And I got through 4 approvals and the rest of them were dealt with by the support team. So just me sitting there managed to get everyone to work faster as well, which was nice. But I got so mad that it was taking so long to do some approvals, I don't write too much code anymore. I still write code. I went in and I got my laptop. I actually got on a flight to California and I started writing code. I went into the dev department and the dev department, they're great. I hate them sometimes. They know Danny's walking in and something's happening. And I said, no, this is what we're going to do. We need to be able to see software before we approve it in a testing in a dedicated environment. So the first thing we need is a testing environment that will automatically open the software. So when you go to permit something, you can run it in the testing environment and it will literally pop up in a web browser, a VDI, text VDI, no clipboard mapping, no anything mapping to your machine, and you can run that software. The next thing I said, well, we need to test everything against everything that's running. So we created this risk center, and I was literally writing code on a plane to California. It was the only flight that got anything productive done. And I think it was Southwest as well, so it's like this. And we said we need to see this data in real time. We don't want to have to wait for it to come into the unified audit. Even if it's only a few minutes, we want to see it in real time. So we created this risk center. And the idea of the risk center is it does various checks when you run a program. So when you run something on it, it allows every file that's installed as part of that to be checked against virus token. So 150 databases, it checks them against it and says, is this good or bad? We have canaries, so we have fake data and fake credit card data on these testing environments. So if you try and run something and it tries to see your data, it's going to tell you, hey, this file touched your data. Do you still trust it? It's up to you to make a decision, do I trust it? Because maybe it's an update to a payroll program that's supposed to touch your data, but you can look at what it touches. We can see any system changes. We can see calls to the network. We can see everything that application is doing in real time. In addition to that, we can also capture every dependency of that application in one single package. So the old way of doing things was installation mode.
Yes.
And well, there was 2 ways. There was installation mode or learning mode. Does anyone want to take a guess what I call learning mode? Oops mode. And what learning mode was always intended was if you have a program that's already installed that's got lots of dependencies outside of your initial learning, and you run that program and it says, I've got 200 DLLs, you can put it into learning mode and you can capture all those DLLs. But in theory, the only reason that would happen is if you forgot to use installation mode when you installed it. Because that's the real reason. And whereas installation mode would track all of the files that are installed and that would have been denied and allow them to run and then catalog them in there. Essentially, by adding this testing environment in 99% of cases, we removed the need to use installation mode or learning mode on your endpoints. You control what runs, you catalog all the files in one place, and it's so much faster. Do you want to talk about how fast these plugin approvals have gone since we put this in?
Yeah, it's definitely improved. I think now they're picking them up same time, usually within under a minute. Now processing them under 15 minutes, I believe it is now.
And that was before, it was 15 minutes to do one file. Now we've got even a complicated app like Exchange is down 80% processing time. And this we then made available to all of our partners. It's technically still in beta. It's been in beta for a long time. It's actually very stable. If you don't have it, request it from your account manager. They'll put it on your account. They're not going to charge you for it. They'll give it free of charge. But it really was one of the best features we released this year. So let's talk about what's new now.
Yeah, so I think everybody, well, anyone who spoke to me in the last year has heard that we've been working towards a new portal.
And the reason is because complaints,
speed, and some people want a fresher design. Our new portal addresses all of that. It's faster, it's cleaner, simple to use, and you're going to find the speed of it is massively increased on our current portal. So if we can switch over to my demo.
Before we do this, we had an advisory board come in, so some of our partners, some of them are here today to give us feedback, and that was one of the things that came up about portal performance. And I was actually showing them the demo of ThreatLocker as it starts now. And my internet speed, for some reason, in our office, our Wi-Fi speed was a gig down and 0.5 meg up, so really, really bad. So every time I opened a page, it was fine, but every time I saved something, it took forever. And I was kind of embarrassed because I'm trying to do this demo, and eventually we got a network cable and it went gig up and down, and it was fine. But we actually ran the same tests on the new portal afterwards, even on the same slow line. And it went from taking a minute to save on that point to less than 2-3 seconds to save. So by changing the way we've written this portal to a more API-driven approach rather than a traditional web forms approach, we're able to reduce the number of postbacks that are required, reduce the amount of upload and download of data because we're not reloading entire pages, and that's made a significant difference. But I'll hand over to you to show the new shiny stuff.
Yeah. So you can see up on the screen here, this is our new unified audit. Very familiar. You're going to be able to see it. It's not going to be brand new that you're going, oh my God, where do I click? What do I do? It's going to be very familiar to you. You're still going to be able to search by all the things that you can search before. It's just going to be a lot faster and a lot easier to load. So when you're seeing anything, you can still click on the items. You're going to get a full history of what they are. You can see here I've got some of my Mac items. So there'll be some Windows stuff. There we go. We have the new processors. So we can click on these. We can still check virus total. We can still see all the information about the certificates. Everything you're used to is there. Something I know a lot of partners have asked me for, and I'm sure they've asked other people, is the ability to build out your rule set when you're searching. So now you can actually go through and you can pick host name, you can say equals, you can do the usual not, and start with contains, but you can actually add multiple rows with the same fields. You can actually build out your search set to make sure you're searching for exactly what you're looking for.
Anyone who's familiar with the current unified audit, there's button and text box fatigue right now. When you look at the screen, it's just rows of text boxes, and you're like, oh, I need to search for an IP address. So you're going do that and trying to find which field to put that in. This has reduced the amount of components on the screen for the user. The ones that they use regularly are there, they're very quick to find, but you can actually add additional features. The other thing we've added is the ability to add contextual buttons. So rather than having the whole screen full, when you select items, it will show you the buttons that are necessary. And we've done this across our entire portal. So it's much, much easier to find. So, yeah.
Again, you've got the file history in here. You can go load all that up right at the touch. We're going to put every one of these, it's going to become a tab, so you're going to flick through and see everything. Everything's going to be at its fingertips. And everyone will be happy to know this will also be translated into the mobile app.
So everything you see in here will be in the mobile app as we roll forward as well, starting with the unified audit. The portal is expected to go into customer availability by the end of March, and we're looking for earlier testers who are a little bit more forgiving when somebody throws an error until then. We've also enhanced our report section as well. So the report in the health center, we'll get into the health center. So now you can manipulate and generate reports online. We don't need to go through that. And general usage has improved across the board.
We'll come to that bit in a bit. Our new health center is going to show you everything. Again, nice, clear, straight apart. You want to see all the denied logins, where they are from around the world. You can see all of them. You'll be able to click in.
Those ones in Florida might have put his password in wrong.
It happens mostly all the time. But you'll be able to see everything that's denied, the IP address, what countries they're coming from, everything at the touch of a button. Being able to search, seeing on a map, seeing real time what's going on. We've also got over here breakdown of the last hour of the unified audit. So this health center is going to become the landing zone for what you're looking for, as well as with recommendations on locking down now, if there's missing remote presence, and if you've got any unused policies. So you could actually keep track of everything that's going on in your environment and keep it nice, healthy, clean, and you're not going to be surprised by anything.
Okay, so I think the next thing we want to move on to is, I can click. Oh, I guess I can't click. I can, there you go, it's on the side there. Is the acquisition of ThreatLocker. So in November last year, ThreatLocker completed an acquisition of ThreatLocker. ThreatLocker was essentially a configuration management solution that allowed MSPs, through the use of an add-on to automate, to easily configure certain Windows policies. They have, I think, 52 or 58 policies. And those policies extended from really basic security and hygiene things like setting auto lock policies on your computer. Now, an auto lock policy doesn't seem that big a deal, but if we look at some of the ransomware attacks that happened where someone got into Screen Connect or got into an RMM or a remote control tool, and then they got onto someone's machine, in many cases, a locked computer would have changed the outcome of that because the attacker would have said, now I need another password to get into this computer. So configuring basic Windows policies like disabling auto run, disabling macros in Office, locking your computer screen is very integral to good cybersecurity hygiene. Minimum password policies, disabled guest accounts, renamed admin accounts. So we completed that acquisition, and at that point in time, it was just an add-on to automate. We've now extended this, and I'll let you show that more to so now it's completely part of the ThreatLocker platform. If you go into the new portal here, you can see that we've got our new configuration manager screen. And maybe we want to pick on some policies to show how easy it is.
Yeah, so we've got a selection of policies here. These are actually all added from our suggested policies. So I'm going to start there because you are able to add any suggested policies to any of your groups, your entire org level, your computer levels. You'll be able to add in those suggested policies. You can also create new policies. Now I'm going to edit one that's already there, which is the one that I mentioned there, auto run. So we can see everything about this. We can see where it's applying. We can see what it's for, how it's active. We can set expirations. We can change the orders. Now, when it comes to actually creating a policy, again, it's very simple. You get to select from that list of configurations. This is everything that ThreatLocker has in its automate platform. So if you're familiar with ThreatLocker, you're going to be able to find what you're looking for here. If you're not, they're all broken into groups all around the local built-in account management. So we can say here, configure local administrator account and where it applies to, that entire org. And we can then change whether or not we're disabling monitor, adding the monitor, and you can see a description of what it's doing there. So this is actually going to disable the local administrator account. Very important, as Danny mentioned, to make sure those little steps aren't being forgotten. You can do this at a global level, you can do this on your group levels. You can make sure that everybody is secured.
And what we've done is we've added the same logic that we use across ThreatLocker, a policy-based system, top to bottom. So if you have this user or this group of computers does one thing, and then you have a different group of computers that does another thing, you can set those policies and you can run them in order, and the first policy to hit will apply. That same familiar policy-based system, old-fashioned firewalls right from the 1980s, applies here. I think some of the other cool policies on here is like configuring user logon reporting and alerting on excessive login failures. These are all important things. Disabling office macros. Most people do not need to use macros, but when we use ring fencing and we use allow listing, it means those macros aren't really going to be able to do any damage, but still, it's just good hygiene to disable those macros. And you can configure it in one place. You don't need Active Directory. You don't need to be in a domain. And you can do this as an MSP to all of your clients, or as an enterprise to your entire organization, or to selected groups of computers. The other cool thing about this is all of the changes will be logged in the unified audit, like we see with everything else. So if somebody makes a change, if an administrator account gets renamed and then it gets renamed back, the system will automatically rename it back to what it should be, and it'll tell you we applied this action because it's no longer in alignment. Anything else you want to touch on, ThreatLocker?
I think that's probably enough on ThreatLocker.
So I want to extend the thank yous. I'm not sure if they're in the back because the lights behind me, but there's a number of the ThreatLocker team, and a number of the development team that have really worked hard when they hadn't heard about ThreatLocker until the day it was dropped on their lap when we announced the acquisition of IT Nation last year. And they worked really hard to get this out and get it executed. So good job, guys, on that. I think we want to go on to our biggest announcement today, which is our ThreatLocker operations. So one of the things I found over the last 5 years is the amount of times somebody calls me and they said, hey, and I spoke about this the other day, I think here, maybe it was in the advisory group, where they said, hey, there's something happening on my server that's not right. And I'll give an example. I got a call from a client in Canada, and they got a request for Mimikatz, and they said to me, we got this request for Mimikatz from our server. What does it mean? It means that's really bad. And so what we did is we logged into ThreatLocker, we looked at the unified audit, and we found for the last 3 days, someone had been logging into their server as a domain admin. And they'd been trying to run an advanced IP scanner. They'd created new domain admin accounts. They were running, trying to run Mimikatz, trying to run Mimikatz. They were trying to run various PowerShell commands. And they did this for 3 days. And the guy was a very consistent worker, this bad guy. Every night he'd log on, in the middle of the night, he'd work an 8-hour shift, and then he'd log off. So his job was to keep. So he's respectable. And so the thing is that the client was running an EDR as well, and they were running ThreatLocker. And the first the client heard about this attack was the attacker said, oh, I give up, I can't run Mimikatz. I wonder what happens when I say request permission. So what happens is the MSP gets a request saying, oh, a user wants to run Mimikatz on my server. And depending on how good the IT manager is or the MSP is, he clicks yes or no. Hopefully he clicks no. In this case, they click no and say, what is it? So we had a look and we found lots and lots of data. And we've seen this consistently. Now, nothing bad happened in this case. Well, they were on the server for 3 days, but they didn't take any data. We were able to look at the logs. They didn't encrypt any files, but they did try. The first thing the attacker did when they logged in was stop the EDR. They went in and stopped the EDR. They didn't have as much luck with ThreatLocker, so the EDR did not flag any alerts. But we find this over and over again, and quite often, especially when people are in monitor mode or learning mode, someone will get hit by ransomware or by something, and we'll go in and we'll see the same patterns. It's like, okay, we got all these green denies that said if you press the secured button, you'll be secured. But we also see patterns that lead up to what this is an impending attack. We know something bad is happening here. And even though we're blocking it, we still want you to know about it. Now, the problem is you cannot know about every pattern and every attack. And I feel like certain communities are massively underserved. So if you go out and you look at threat detection tools, they focus 100% on big enterprise, because that's who they make their money from. They make money from big, large organizations. And they focus typical attack patterns. This is a typical attack pattern. Therefore, we're going to in this type of organization. What they don't focus on is small organizations. They don't focus on MSPs. They don't focus on car dealerships. And all of these companies have different examples of an attack pattern. For example, one of the things we will see quite often when I've done ransomware recovery, or I've gone to an MSP who said, oh, I got hit. And I'll say, well, how did you get hit? And I'll go through their event logs. Customers who aren't even using ThreatLocker, who's coming up, want to onboard. I say, well, how did you get hit? Well, they got into my RMM. So how did you get into your RMM? Do you not have dual factor? They say, yeah, they connected directly to SQL. So one of the things I'll see quite often is a direct connection to SQL, to the SQL database on the RMM, because there's no dual factor on SQL. Now, the problem is nobody cares about that from an EDR perspective when we think about big EDRs, because that's not typical for an enterprise attack. Logging and connecting directly using Management Studio to your SQL server is not typical of an attack if you're the federal government or if you're Citibank. It is typical of an attack if you're an MSP. So what we wanted to do is, first of all, we wanted to build a tool that allows you to set up alerts and allows you to configure alerts that will show you something is trying to happen. And maybe we should focus on that, because then I want to focus on how this tool becomes effective. If you want to show a little bit about how the tool works.
So I'm going to bring up here ThreatLocker Ops. So as Danny's mentioned, we've got policy driven, flagging alerts, things that could be indicative of threats. So Windows Defender, reporting malware, top one right there. It's not necessarily a guarantee. None of these are all, oh, you're absolutely being hit. It's not about that, it's about pattern. And what we do with these policies, and you can see on the side here, we've got an increased threat level. And the way we're working it is we're increasing the threat level depending on the certain policies. Now, all of these policies are configurable. So you can create a new policy, pick where it is applied to, you can name it, change the icon, and then you can set your policy conditions. And those conditions can be based on things within your unified audit. They can be within your event log. The things that are happening that we can see.
So I mentioned at the beginning, we collect 2 billion rows of data an hour. And right now, we pretty much just show you that data in the unified audit. We can use it to cross-examine data. So if somebody says, hey, there's this new file that has never been seen before, and it's saying it's Office, we can say, well, it doesn't look like Office, we can't find it, but let's check against those 2 billion rows and see if anyone else is running it. But what we haven't done is use that data to block things, to detect, to detect potential anomalies. With ThreatLocker, we're now able to take all of those sensors, those 4,500 rows per endpoint per day of network connections, registry changes, of storage file changes, and of application changes, application installations, and we're able to cross-reference them against these policies so you can create an alert.
You can see one there that you mentioned, monitoring direct access to the connectorized database. You can set this up, you can set it up on the servers that you need it to be. You can get alerted. Now, you can see here, I've got a health center alert, increased threat level. There are other alerts. So we're in these policies, policy actions. We have options. We can send emails, we can create tickets. We can enable policies. So maybe you just want a policy to lock something. If you go, no, this is a definite indication.
RDP is a perfect example. Please don't open port 3389. But let's just say you have it open. Maybe because this customer insists on it, or it's on a LAN even that it's open, and suddenly you get an alert that says you've got 2,000 or 100 invalid logins to this connection. You can automatically enable a NAC policy to shut off network traffic or to shut off RDP traffic to that server until you've gone in and you've remediated it. So you can enable, you can deny all software from running. So in the case of that customer where Mimikatz tries to run on a server in the middle of the night, and we can even use time, by the way, as a variable, we could say, wait there, we've seen Mimikatz, we've seen advanced IP scanner, we've got an RDP session open on this. All of these are increasing our threat level. We're still blocking, and you have to use this because we cannot protect every threat. That's not possible. But you're still blocking, so you've got time. You don't have to react too fast. But what you can do is you can then automatically respond, say, these three components together, I'm going to nuke your server, maybe not nuke it, but I'm going to block every application from running. I'm going to block all network traffic. I'm going to block storage. And one of the things about network isolation, network traffic is great. We isolate network traffic by blocking it. But if the ransomware is already running, it's already encrypting. Taking it off the network doesn't help you unencrypt your files. But blocking all storage rights, blocking all applications does. So you can essentially just triple that server until you've been able to review it and make precision changes to enable it. Of course, if you're using allow listing, if you're using ring fencing, the ransomware isn't running to begin with, but you're aware that they're trying to do this.
And that will tie in with this policy that I've created here, high threat level, and I'm isolating the machine. So you can trigger that based on the thresholds that you're setting. Now, I've mentioned the health centre alerts.
I want to check one more policy for that because we've got the new domain administrator created. So a couple of things in here. You can integrate it with your current AVs or your current EDRs as well. So if you are using them alongside ThreatLocker, you can also say if they logged an entry, let ThreatLocker know, and then ThreatLocker take action based on them logging an entry. So in the case of here, we've got a Windows Defender policy. If Windows Defender detects malware, then maybe create an alert, because as an MSP, ThreatLocker is going to block it, but we still want you to know that malware tries to run, so we can create an alert. Or in this case, new domain admin created. It's something you should be checking. Someone creates a new domain admin, someone should be verifying and acknowledging that. So in this policy here, it literally monitors the Windows event log for domain admin being created, and then it allows, sorry, I'll say that again. It can trigger an alert based on that. And I'll let you go over to the health center on that.
Yeah, so I'm going to switch over to the health centre. I scrolled down earlier, so it's shown straight away. But as you can see at the top here, we've got some of the alerts that we've triggered on our machines so that we can demonstrate what these health centre alerts are. So when you're in your health centre, and again, remember everything in this portal is going to be into your mobile app. So you'll be able to get these at a touch of a button in your app. You're going to be able to see here we've got a safe mode boot. So this computer was booted into safe mode. Maybe it was intentional, maybe not. This is something that we've triggered, we've set an alert on. We should look at it. It is indicative of a potential threat. Direct access to SQL. We've got the details then of who's accessed it, what they've accessed it with. You can then go through and see these, and maybe you will be able to catch something. Like Danny said, you've still got your whitelisting, you're still locking it down, everything's still secure, you've got your ring fencing, you've got your network access control on. But if someone is on your machine, these are going to be the things that trigger and tell you that that machine needs looking at.
These are indicative signs that something bad is happening. Now, I want to move on to the community because we've built this tool to allow you to create alerts and be knowledgeable. But for me to come up here and say, we've got the best tool to help you know when bad shit work, after I've just said no one else can do that for the last 5 years, it would be really disingenuous and naive. We can't. Nobody can detect all bad things. Come to our Shell Talk webinar this afternoon, try and run it on your EDR and see what happens. Next week it'll be blocked because everyone's going to stream and see that live stream, but this week it's not because I did it. So you can't guarantee you're going to detect everything, which is why you need to operate on a zero trust basis. But what we can do is, first of all, we can help you by creating a tool that lets you know when things are happening. But secondly, we created a community. Now, the idea of community is if you are an MSP, you know threats that might affect you, or maybe you don't, but other MSPs might have seen that before. So what you can do in the community, the ThreatLocker community, is we can publish and post policies. So it's one below that.
It is. I just wanted to show how easy it was to actually publish one. So any policy we create has the ability to be shared. So if you've created something, you go, I'm using this is useful. You can share that with our community.
Now, the nice thing about the community is we are going to populate that too, because we see potential threats. We have cyber heroes working 24 hours a day, seeing things. So if they say, oh, there's a new Exchange vulnerability, and this is indicative that you're running a vulnerable version of Exchange, post the policy in the community. You can go into that community, you get notifications if you subscribe to it and say, oh, I'm going to add this policy. I want to know about it. But equally, MSPs, IT directors, certain organizations can post into the community. And what's nice about the community is it delivers very simple ways to say, oh, here's a suggested policy. It was published by Matt at ThreatLocker. You can see it's published by an MSP, or it's published by this IT company. And you can build your own profile and your own credibility. And I think if you click on any of those policies, if I'm right in saying, Michael, there's a popularity and there's a rating, because two very different things. So we can see here that this policy, which is security alarm clear, so you want to notify, if we scroll down to the actions, we can see what action it takes. We can say that it increases the threat level if the event log is clear. That's all it does. And you can use that threat level to take other actions later on. So if somebody clears the event log, so we can say, oh, this seems like a useful policy. So we can add it. Now, before we add it, we can see, first of all, what is it rated as? What is the community rated it as? But also how many people are using it. So if there's 5 people using it and it's rated 5 stars, that's not that valuable. But if there's 100, I'd rather take someone that's used by 100,000 people and rated 4 stars or 3 stars. And you can see that data, and we will populate that data automatically on your feed based on similar things you've subscribed to before, similar companies that are using similar software to you. So if you are using Automate or you are using Kaseya, and there's other companies in the community that are using similar software, we will publish those. You can search and you can add anything, but we will publish just the most relevant policies to you based on similar companies that have done similar things in the past. And that's really, really important, because if we want to get knowledge of what's happening on our network, we can't rely on one guy or one company sitting somewhere in an office saying we're going to find every bad guy out there, because it's just not possible. We have to use zero trust, and we have to use the community to find out these are the threats we've seen before. And they're really important. I challenge anyone to go into their RMM when they get back, if they've got an on-prem, to open a direct connection to SQL, and to insert a row, not a bad row, please, to insert a row and see if their EDR even blinks and says there's a potential threat here. Again, by putting these things in the community, we can now log from the Windows event log. So previously we've been allowed to log from all of the other ThreatLocker products. In addition to this ThreatLocker product adds entries from the Windows event log. So you can see all those Windows event log entries, and then we can feed on that and we can create policies and we can allow it. If you want to add up anything as a final point.
I would like to add, you mentioned about people contributing. You can also follow someone. So if you find that Danny's policies generally tend to be decent, then follow them, and you'll be able to see them in your feed as well. So this is really a community tool. It is going to be built out by you guys. You guys will be able to help each other.
And of course, we're going to build it out. We're working with other cybersecurity companies to help build out the community as well. But because we're working, you can follow type companies and have similar policies, and you're going to be more aware of what's trying to happen in your network, well, blocking everything by default, while not allowing apps to step out their lane, so you're in control. So I think that's the end. So the good news is, nope, so I will say, if you want to schedule a demo as it goes live, and you want to be an early beta trial, come by and say, hey, I want to try this out early, I want to be an early adopter. What's really cool about this product is it doesn't add any more footprint onto your endpoint. All of this analysis, all of this work is done in our data centers, which means our CPUs, our servers burning electricity bills, and not yours. So you can try this out. It's pretty cool when it's going to be available. It should be available in beta next month, and it will be released by the end of the quarter. It's really going to give you a lot of power. Come by, schedule a demo, and if you're interested in putting this onto the ThreatLocker agreement, talk to the guys on the deal station too. Thank you very much.
I'll just add one thing.
There you go.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Adam Reed.
Thank you. All right, so thank you very much, gentlemen. That was exciting. The future looks promising. And speaking of the future, since we're pivoting towards what we can do about risk and looking to the future and to anticipate, we wanted to invite an incredible next speaker here to really expand upon the future.